you could actually make some money, but roulette you can't. So you have to take calculated, educated risk. And I am not the big risk taker that a lot of entrepreneurs are. I like to have safety nets. So I always say, okay, well, let's try that. But if that fails, we have this cushion and we can move here and we can move here. So I build a kind of a sequence of soft landings in case one thing we're trying isn't working, that it's not everything bet on one item. But having said that, when you're just starting out, you don't have a lot to lose. So why not put it all on one item if you've calculated that's a good risk?
Very interesting. When I was in business many years ago, I was in business with a family member, not my spouse like you, but my sister, and we had two different philosophies. She kind of had a fear of failure, and I had a fear of not succeeding. And when you create those safety nets, as you've described, was that as a result of you fearing that failure was always a reality or a possibility?
Well, I think it's just that I wanted to have cushion, right? In case things went wrong, we'd have a backup plan. So I would always do things like, oh, let's buy a rental property and put 50% down. We have some cash, let's do that, and put 50% down. And my husband would say, well, why would we do that? We could use that money in the business and we could, open an office here. And I said, yeah, but it's really safe there, and doing that is kind of risky. So let's have that in case this doesn't work. We'd have this to fall back on. And so I think it's that kind of combination of things. Sure. And I think, again, as you're young, if, like when you're just starting out, you can say, I remember my dad saying to me when we were buying these 3 or 4 houses and fixing them up and turning them over and selling them, he would say, no, don't buy another house, take the money and run, because, the housing market's gonna crash and blah, 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 blah. And this was in the late 70s, and the market really didn't crash until '89. So he had a long ways to go. But and I'd say, oh no, but I don't have anything to lose. I mean, what am I going to lose? My $10,000, and so he's looking at it from a very conservative side, where he wouldn't want to lose his savings. But for me, I could lose my savings, and it was okay because I could get back in that same position within a couple of years. So it really depends on where you are in your life and what you've done so far.
Thank you, Pam. I want to remind the audience that this is indeed a conversation with Pam tonight. You'll notice there's a couple of microphones at each side of the room. So if you have questions, we want to begin to invite you to line up if you would. And you're welcome to ask Pam any question this evening, and she'll be delighted, I hope, to answer your question. I'm sure she will.
The first 5 questions get a T-shirt.
And the first 5 questions. So that means, how many T-shirts do I have already?
I should have brought some QAD T-shirts, here.
Yeah, that would be great. So please don't hesitate. If you've got questions, we invite you at any time to begin to line up, and you're more than welcome to ask Pam a question. We were talking about skills and abilities. Let's talk a little bit about education. If you were advising a person today who wanted to go into business, what would be the kinds of educational, academic programs, courses that you would encourage them to take? What would be important for them?
Well, my first advice, and I say this on a regular basis to my children and their friends, stay in school. Graduate from college, get a BA, get a BS, because that's really entry. That is just basic entry into the world. I think after that, you have to think about what it is that you want to do, where is your passion, and I played around a lot with that. My first semester or first couple quarters at UCSB, where do I fit? Where do I want to be? And a lot of my thinking is, where could I get a job? And if that's important to you, if it's important to you to be able to graduate and make $50,000 a year in today's dollars, you ought to think about now what it is that is going to get me there, whether you're doing that working for somebody else or whether you're doing that starting your own business. You know, if you're a passionate artist or a passionate filmmaker, it's probably going to be a passionate graphic artist. You should pursue that, but you need to realize that it's probably going to be many years before you make a real substantial living, you know, in some of those trades. But working and getting economic security are really two different things. You can be working and saving every penny and leveraging it into, my favorite, real estate, has always done quite well for us, and still being able to do what you're passionate about doing. They're really separate type things.
Indeed. Let's see if we can't shift gears just a little bit. Obviously, QAD is a technology-based company, and we have a lot of students today who, I did an exercise in class the other day asking for ideas for new business startups, and what surprised me, I guess it shouldn't have, is that probably more than 90% of all these student groups, the ideas they came up with were technology-based ideas, products or service-based businesses. So how do you see technology affecting business in the future, and what kinds of skill sets in the area of technology will be important for people as they think about starting new businesses as well?
Well, I think there's a couple things that you have to realize that's going on in today's economy and will probably continue for the next good 10 or 15 years, is that we're going through a globalization of our economy. It's, you know, I'm concerned about jobs such as my skill of just straight development programming, because now you're competing not just with the people in California or the people in the US, but you're competing against the people in Poland and Russia and India and China. And the wages and the cost of people around the world vary greatly. Here in the US, maybe a given programmer graduating from UCSB in computer science might start at 50 grand a year. But that same person in China is going to start about 12,000 a year. So companies are, you know, looking at those different wages and making decisions on where they're going to hire. Now, having said that, I think that any kind of engineering degree I've noticed there's still quite a few jobs open for, and it's a good area to be in. But it seems like if you're working on something that is you know, used in a particular area, like today, something that's green in the area of alternate energy, doing any kind of service-based job, whether it's being a doctor or a nurse or something that has to be here in our local community or in our local U.S. economy, those jobs are extremely hard to outsource. So you might consider something, you know, in those areas.
Interesting. I have a follow-up, but it looks like we have a young lady that'd like to ask you a question. Please.
Oh, thank you for calling me a young lady. I have a question just about if you could talk about your challenges as a woman in engineering, because as a young lady, I'm just kidding. I had my bachelor's in the 70s where there were like 6 women out of 200 men, and got my MSCE from UCSB and got a JD. And I've been started in technology with my own company doing health games. And it seems like still the credibility, sometimes the investors are my age, you know, maybe they still can't necessarily give you the credibility as being a woman in technology.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering what barriers you've had to overcome in being a woman in technology, and if you have any advice for young women like me who are working towards getting investment in their technology companies.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think there has been that issue, and it's unfortunately got even worse. There's fewer women in engineering today than there was even 10 years ago, which is unbelievable. You know, it was very small, it kind of grew, and then it went back down again. So people don't expect a woman to be technical. And I think that goes from anything from being able to fix a car to be able to, you know, repair an air conditioner, or to be able to do a development or build something. So there's those preconceptions, and I think that how you prove yourself is showing that you're able to do it. And from a customer's perspective, there's always been customers